These are the headlines we're following at this hour. The U.S. Federal Reserve has decided to hold its key interest rate unchanged for the second consecutive time as inflation slows. Yet it has not taken a rate cut either, saying the economy remains strong. Now that keeps the wide rate gap between South Korea and the United States also unchanged. Hundreds of Palestinians and foreign nationals have evacuated Gaza for the first time since the Israel-Hamas war began, as the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt opened. The limited evacuation comes as Israel pushes deeper into Gaza and launches second airstrike in the Jabalia area. South Korean intelligence suggests that North Korea is in the final stage preparations for its third attempt at launching a spy satellite. Seoul's ambassador to the U.S. renewed South Korea's will to ramp up diplomacy to deter Pyongyang's violations of UN Security Council resolutions. Good afternoon. We start with the U.S. Federal Reserve holding its key interest rate steady for the second consecutive time as inflation slows. Yet it has not taken a rate cut either, saying the economy remains strong. Now that keeps the wide rate gap between South Korea and the United States also unchanged. An Sung-jin reports.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has decided to maintain interest rates in the 5.25% to 5.5% range. This was the second consecutive meeting after September where the FOMC held rates steady at a 22-year high. The decision is mostly attributed to a slowdown in inflation as the consumer price index recorded an on-year decrease, while the U.S. economy has been growing at a constant pace over the past month, potentially increasing the growth rate to the 2% range. An increase in the government bond rates also reduced the need for additional interest rate hikes by the Fed as borrowing costs for households and businesses rose.
Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has been expanding at a strong pace and well above earlier expectations.
The Fed's second straight pause follows a series of rate hikes over the previous year and a half, including 4 in 2023, as the committee fought to tame high inflation. Though inflation has cooled since last summer when prices peaked at a high unseen in nearly 4 decades, inflation is still lingering above the Fed's target of 2% per year, hinting that a future hike may be needed.
But a few months of good data are only the beginning of what it will take to build confidence that inflation is moving down sustainably toward our goal. The process of getting inflation sustainably down to 2% has a long way to go. We'll be looking at all those things as we make a decision in December. We haven't made that decision.
The latest decision also means that the rate gap between South Korea and the U.S. will remain in the 1.75 to 2 percentage points range, as the Bank of Korea has kept its benchmark rate at 3.5% for nearly a year. This rate difference prompts concerns over the South Korean won-U.S. dollar exchange rate, as inflation remains high in South Korea due to an increase in the price of petroleum and agricultural products.
As the US froze its interest rates, the burden caused by the difference has been somewhat reduced. But even so, the gap is not small. So if this extends, there will be a lot of risks like capital outflow, with the US becoming more foreign investment friendly.
He also added that the interest rate gap would not last forever, which is why it is necessary to also watch for increased household debt ahead of the upcoming central bank meeting. As the U.S. has maintained its interest rate, there is a high chance that the Bank of Korea will also hold its rate. However, as the responses for increased inflation and higher debt differ, this may change how the benchmark rates for the two countries will unfold. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea continues to see a rising trend in consumer prices. They jumped 3.8% on year in October on the back of high prices of oil and agricultural products. Authorities will seek to stabilize prices ahead of kimchi making season through discounts and expanding supplies. Park Go-nu has the details.
South Korea's consumer prices saw another on-year jump in October. According to Statistics Korea on Thursday, the Consumer Price Index, a key gauge of inflation, increased 3.8% on year last month. That was the third consecutive month it has seen a rise of over 3%. The numbers surged even more in October as costs for agricultural goods, industrial products, services, and energy all went up. While petroleum product prices have been dropping since July, a shallower fall in October has been attributed to higher consumer prices overall. Agricultural goods unexpectedly saw the biggest percentage rise since May 2021, jumping 13.5%.
Normally, costs of agricultural goods, especially vegetables, tend to fall in October from September as weather conditions ease. But it was different this year due to abnormal temperatures.
In an emergency economic meeting held on Thursday, Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho also mentioned consumer prices, which are expected to go down at a slower pace due to factors including geopolitical risks and abnormally low temperatures. But he also said the government will prioritize stabilizing consumer prices. And with kimchi making season approaching, he spoke of ways to keep the price of ingredients under control.
We will do our very best with discounts and expanding supplies to keep kimchi making costs lower than last year.
He promised the largest ever package to keep the price of kimchi making ingredients stable, pledging some 24.5 billion Korean won, or roughly $18 million in monetary support. Also, to relieve the burden of living expenses, he said the government will give out energy cost discounts and cashback to lessen heating bills, particularly for vulnerable social groups. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
The South Korean government's effort to drive balanced growth across the country is now an official 5-year plan. On Thursday, the government unveiled a plan which includes providing local governments with more autonomy in terms of developing their respective regions. Another key aspect of the plan is access to quality education. And as announced last September, there will be newly designated districts that collaborate with local governments and education offices to enhance public schooling, meeting students' needs and reducing reliance on private lessons. This comes as South Korea looks to tackle a steep population decline, with rural towns disappearing as more people move to the capital region due to job opportunities and infrastructure. Hundreds of Palestinians and foreign nationals have evacuated Gaza for the first time since the Israel-Hamas war began as the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt opened. The limited evacuation comes as Israel pushes deeper into Gaza and launches second airstrike in the Jabalia area. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
A total of 335 foreign passport holders were allowed to leave Gaza via the Rafah crossing on Wednesday, as well as 76 Palestinians who are seriously injured due to the ongoing airstrikes in the region. The Rafah crossing is expected to be opened for the second straight day on Thursday to allow more foreign nationals stuck in Gaza to evacuate safely to Egypt. According to sources, the list of those allowed to evacuate through the crossing will be agreed between Egypt and Israel, with embassies from respective countries being informed in advance to ensure they can prepare to receive their citizens. Meanwhile, the Israeli military conducted an airstrike in the Jabalia area of northern Gaza for the second straight day on Wednesday. While the number of casualties from the second airstrike has not been confirmed, Gaza's health ministry says dozens of people were killed or wounded in the latest attack. According to the United Nations, there are some 116,000 registered refugees in the camp, which was set up in the aftermath of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. While Israel says it had targeted high-ranking Hamas officials hiding in the camp and eliminated a top Hamas commander, the Palestinian militant group has dismissed the claim and instead noted that 7 of the hostages taken from Israel, including 3 foreign passport holders, were killed in the strike. The statement from Hamas has not yet been verified. The combined Israeli and Palestinian death toll has now surpassed 10,000. Gaza's health ministry says over 8,800 Palestinians have been killed so far, with around 1,400 deaths reported in Israel. Children make up a third of the total death toll. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And it's the civilians that are paying the price in the fight between Israel and Hamas. Humanitarian aid for people in Gaza is nowhere close to meeting their needs, forcing residents to spend all day looking for food and water. Choi Soo-hyung reports.
Israel has imposed a complete blockade on Gaza since October 9th, increasing the intensity of its attacks, including retaliatory airstrikes and sending in ground troops, leaving those in the Gaza Strip in a desperate situation. According to the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday, following the imposition of the blockade, food and water are running out and hundreds of Gaza residents are starving as they desperately try to obtain essential food items such as bread and vegetables.
We hope that the shops will manage to maintain the essential food supplies, such as flour and cooking oil. We also need car parts and diesel fuel. Today, I had to travel a long way in an ox cart to buy flat bread, but got nothing.
The Gaza Strip used to depend on Israel and Egypt for most of its food. However, when Hamas won in the Palestinian Legislative Council elections in 2006, Israel imposed a partial blockade. As a result, over half of the Gaza population fell into poverty, and the recent war has pushed many into starvation. Israel has allowed a small amount of humanitarian aid to enter Gaza, but the UN World Food Programme estimates that this may only last for about 7 days. Furthermore, Israel has completely halted fuel supplies due to concerns about Hamas hijacking them for military use.
Due to the difficulty in finding transportation, as there are no cars because there is no diesel or gas, we are forced to ride a donkey cart because it is all that is available now.
Moreover, diseases such as skin infections and the emergence of head lice are spreading rapidly, leading to a public health disaster. According to the Middle East Monitor, schools and camps operated by refugee aid organizations are overcrowded because more than 15,000 Gaza residents are seeking refuge from Israeli airstrikes, causing serious life-threatening health and hygiene issues.
I am raising alarm about the possibly catastrophic consequences of large-scale ground operations in Gaza and the potential for thousands more civilians to die.
The Gaza Health Ministry said generators in the 2 main hospitals in Gaza will completely stop without essential fuel and electricity supplies, and there is a growing risk of infant mortality due to a lack of food and infrastructure damage from the fighting. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
South Korean intelligence suggests that North Korea is in the final stage preparations for its third attempt at launching a spy satellite. Seoul's ambassador to the U.S. renewed South Korea's will to ramp up diplomacy to deter Pyongyang's violations of UN Security Council resolutions. Pae-eun-ji has more.
South Korea's ambassador to the U.S., Cho Hyun-dong, has vowed to step up diplomatic efforts to deter North Korea from breaching UN Security Council resolutions. Speaking to reporters in Washington on Wednesday local time, he says South Korea will enhance diplomatic efforts with the U.S. and other like-minded countries to deter North Korea, noting that there have been signs of an arms deal with Russia, as well as a connection between the regime and Hamas. Arms trade with the North is strictly banned under multiple UN Security Council resolutions. Cho also said South Korea will firmly respond to the North's provocations, and that South Korea has been closely cooperating with the U.S. and Japan to deter North Korea's missile threats. Regarding U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Seoul next week, he said this clearly shows that Washington considers its relations with South Korea to be very important, as a key partner in the Indo-Pacific region. His remarks come as Pyongyang plans to make a third attempt at launching a military reconnaissance satellite using ballistic missile technology. South Korea's National Intelligence Service said in a closed-door parliamentary session on Wednesday that North Korea appears to be in the final stages of preparations, including inspections on engine and launch devices. It also added that there is a higher chance that the third launch will be successful due to Russia's help.
North Korea appears to have received technical assistance from Russia, and there's a higher chance that the third launch will be successful, but it still lacks technology and funds.
The agency has also said that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is believed to have ordered officials to come up with ways to support Palestine. Pae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
28 governments, including South Korea, the US, UK, and China, have jointly declared they will pursue safe and human-centric use of artificial intelligence. It was the first document of its kind signed at a summit hosted by the UK. President Yoon Suk-yeol is set to attend the forum virtually and also co-host a follow-up summit next year. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
Leading IT nations have signed the world's first global declaration on ensuring artificial intelligence is developed safely and responsibly, recognizing that the technology could pose catastrophic risks to humanity. At a summit on AI safety held in southeast England on Wednesday, 28 governments, including South Korea, the UK, the United States and China, penned the so-called Bletchley Declaration, calling for AI to be designed, developed and used in ways that are human-centric, trustworthy and responsible. The two-day summit brings together governments, politicians, scientists and tech executives to address growing concerns over the unknown and potentially destabilizing impact of AI across societies.
We can't expect these companies to mark their own homework. Now, that has to be the responsibility of governments. That's why I've created the AI Safety Institute here in the UK, which I hope can be a globally leading institute to research the safety of these models.
Without oversight and management, governments fear the fast-evolving technology poses substantial risks to individual privacy, safety and national security. In particular, the declaration underscores the danger of AI systems stirring further cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and even the development of biological weapons. The governments agreed to work together to identify shared concerns and build scientific understanding of the risks in discussions going forward. They also endorsed a pro-innovation and proportionate governance that maximizes the benefits while considering the risks associated with AI. President Yoon Suk-yeol will attend day 2 of the discussions to share ways to cooperate globally to establish an international organization and new digital norms to promote the use of AI for human development. Before joining the summit, Yoon spoke to a local broadcaster on Thursday, reiterating his views on AI governance.
AI와의 디지털 기술이 우리의 자유와 민주주의를 확장시키는 데 활용이 되어야지 이것이 자유와 민주주의를 훼손하고 억압하는 쪽으로 쓰여서는 안 된다는 그런 원칙을 가져야 되고 우리도 그래서 그 AI 디지털 시대에 우리가 어떻게 해야 하는지에 관한 대한민국 차원에서의 권리 장전을 발표를 했고
Over the past year, Yoon has stressed the need to create a new digital order and establish appropriate governance over technology in his keynote speeches at New York University, Sorbonne University and the UN General Assembly. His office says South Korea and the UK have agreed to co-host a mini virtual summit in 6 months' time, ahead of the second AI Safety Summit this time next year. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The South Korean women's national football team has failed to reach the Paris 2024 Olympics. The team led by Colin Bell drew 1-1 against China in the Asian second qualifying round on Wednesday. The result meant South Korea finished second in Group B behind North Korea. The first-place teams in Groups A to C and the best second-place team go into the next round of qualification. South Korea, with 5 points from 3 games, lost out to Uzbekistan for the best second-place team. Australia, North Korea, Japan, and Uzbekistan will compete in the next round for the 2 spots at the Olympics.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Iran, imprisoned women's rights activist Narges Mohammadi has smuggled out a letter of thanks for the Nobel Peace Prize. Mohammadi, who is currently serving multiple sentences in Tehran's Evin prison amounting to about 12 years, was awarded the prize last month for a fight against the oppression of Iran's women. The 51-year-old managed to smuggle out the letter written in October, which was read out by her daughter Kiana Rahmani on Tuesday evening local time. In a letter to Inspire, Mohammadi expressed gratitude for the award, saying it marked a turning point in empowering protests and social movements worldwide. Arrested more than a dozen times and held 3 times at Evin prison since 2012, Mohammadi said in a letter that while fight for democracy in Iran is difficult, we believe in it, commit to it, and are certain of victory. Moving over to Bosnia and Herzegovina, a Swedish crime boss was killed in Sarajevo on Tuesday night in a mafia-styled execution. Swedish national Haris Osterdahl, head of the Vinsta drug trafficking network, was shot dead with a silencer gun by a killer on a bicycle. Elvira Mutic, an associate of Osterdahl, was also shot and injured but survived. Local police have arrested 3 suspects on suspicion of participating in the murder. As reported by the Swedish local paper, Dagens Nyheter, Osterdahl was connected to the Iraqi Kurd Rawa Majid, better known as the Kurdish Fox, head of Sweden's infamous crime ring, the Foxtrot Network. In Switzerland, restrictions on blood donations from homosexual men have been completely lifted. From Wednesday, gay men are allowed to give blood as long as they pass the same eligibility criteria required for heterosexuals. During the HIV/AIDS epidemic of the 1980s, gay men in Switzerland were banned from donating blood. However, in 2017, the policy was relaxed to allow sexually active gay men to give blood a year after last having homosexual relations. But with the new rules, the waiting period has now been shortened to 4 months after their last sexual encounter, which is the same for heterosexuals. Swiss Transfusion SRC, in charge of Switzerland's blood supply, as well as Swiss Medic, the licensing authority, agreed to the changes to implement the new policy. In Colombia, on Monday, 500 newly born marine turtles have been released into the Pacific Ocean in effort to preserve marine biodiversity. Freed on the Punta Bonita beach, the 500 turtles include the near-threatened black wood turtles, as well as endangered olive ridley sea turtles. The Guardians of Mangrove Association, which runs a joint preservation program with the fishing communities in North Colombia, has been providing sanctuary for endangered turtle species eggs found across beaches and releasing them back into the ocean habitat once they have hatched successfully. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. As soon as we entered into November, we saw some record-breaking high numbers. Jeju saw the warmest November temperatures in 100 years, with a high of 28.4 degrees Celsius yesterday, and it's going to be as warm today in most places. In fact, the capital had the warmest November morning temperatures on record today. The highs will also hike 3 degrees higher than yesterday's toasty temperatures. And unlike Wednesday, the sun is taking center stage. Meanwhile, Gyeongju will see highs of 29 degrees this afternoon. Hard to believe these November numbers. Most places are having highs in the mid to upper 20s with falling leaves this afternoon. Enjoy the warmth while you can, because that rain rolls in tomorrow will put the brakes on these warm temperatures. Central regions will see rain tomorrow. Then from Saturday into next Monday, it's going to rain nationwide. Then please brace yourselves as winter starts to peek through the curtain next week. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Out of some 240 hostages taken by Hamas, just 4 have been released and 1 rescued. Third-party negotiations are underway, but Israel is also trying to free hostages, which is its main goal, along with destroying Hamas. But achieving them together appears to be extremely challenging because of scarce intelligence on hostages' locations in Hamas's underground tunnel system, where they can be moved at any time. The dual objective also limits Israel's military options, like flooding underground tunnels, which could possibly kill hostages. This hostage dilemma seems to intensify as Israel pushes deeper into Gaza, as Hamas claims several hostages were killed in a recent airstrike. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.